Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hopefully, you're having a
Hey.
good one so far. It is Friday, so it's another episode of The Millennial with Billy and Mel. What is going on, guys? If you haven't noticed, I'm in a different place than I normally am. I am at the beach, hanging out with the wife and doing all those types of things. So we're having a little mini vacation, right? Because
Nice.
that's what millennials need. We need a lot
Right.
lot more vacations. Uh,
Self-care. Hashtag
Self-care.
self-care.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, we hope that you're having a good week so far, and we have a really fun, controversial topic to talk about. I love
Mm.
I love when we do these types of conversations. Because we like to have fun, but we also like to be serious at the same time. But before we get into today's topic, right, the Great Breakup, that's what they're calling it. So I'm teasing that a little bit. I
Oh,
thought
I
that was really
wonder.
funny, the
Yeah.
Great Breakup.
It could be anything, really. I mean,
Yeah, could be breaking up with
breakup.
anything, right?
Ooh.
But anyways, before we get into that, Mel, what is going on? How's your week been since what, Monday? I saw you on Monday or
I know. We've
Friday. I can't
seen
remember.
each other twice in 2 weeks. This is fantastic. Really good. Yeah, I just designed 50 new holiday cards. So I'm going to be putting them out. So anybody that is going to be ordering family or business cards, please support local, made to keep. And yeah, they'll be out. So I've been keeping busy with all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And if anybody's been following us on the social medias, we've been talking a little bit about
Ooh.
some changes that are coming to the podcast. We're not going to talk about them. We're just going to tease that a little bit to
Yeah.
let you know. Fun
Lots
fact,
going on behind the scenes.
last night I was on another podcast.
Ooh.
It's called The Brotherhood, and so
Okay.
it's a guys group, I guess, of some sorts, and they wanted to learn more about my story. It was one of my friends, Clay. He runs this group called The Brotherhood. It's like a motivational group for men. But I met him at the Slaymaker Method Success Summit, and we had a great conversation at the meeting and shared a little bit about my story. And he was asking me to come on, so I did that last night at 9:30. That was pretty fun to do.
Awesome. Getting on other stages. Like I have a speaking event at the Girls Grace Conference at Milton Hershey School tonight. So look at us
Yeah, look at us.
already
We're
on
out and about, getting in
other
the community.
stages.
Yeah, what is it? The old saying, shaking hands and kissing babies, right? so, but anyways, I think we should get right into it. Definitely. It's so I subscribe to this thing called the Morning Brew. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, I have
Okay.
heard. Yep.
So it's a cool thing. They send you an email every day with the things that you're interested in, and it's a nice format and just kind of like little bullet points about everything. You can click into the actual, they'll hyperlink the actual article,
Mhm.
and so I read it every morning. And so 2 days ago, they posted this article that I thought was really interesting, right? And Mel sent me a message and was like, "Hey, what are we talking about?" Right? And I was like, "This is perfect, right?" Because we're gonna definitely hear a lot from Mel today, because this is definitely a topic that's drilled down to you. And so but it was the topic of called and it was called the Great Breakup. And
Mhm.
basically what this article wrote about, talked about, was women in management, right? We talked about the Great Resignation already, people quitting their jobs, doing different things in massive amounts of people going to do different jobs. But this article is specifically about women in management and how they are quitting their management, their higher level management jobs, to go somewhere else, right? To
Right.
go somewhere else. So,
Oh, is this
Mel,
a COVID, a post-pandemic similar to the Great
yeah, so
Resignation? So it's just kind
so
of a new thing.
yeah, so it was a survey done. A women in the workplace report is what the article says, and it says they interviewed about over like 30,000 women,
Wow. Yeah.
from all different walks of life, right? So all ethnicities, the whole nine yard, all different age groups, not just millennials. Okay, it's not
Right.
just a
Right.
millennial thing. It's all different age groups and all different, stuff like that. And so they asked them, they basically polled all these women and said, why are you leaving? Right, manager type, like not your mid level manager, but higher level management, directors, CEOs, stuff like that.
Right.
So, and apparently a lot of women are are leaving jobs, and
Mhm.
that are in higher roles. So that's a little bit different than probably, I would think, the Great Resignation was probably a lot of people just working jobs that they didn't like,
Right.
right, necessarily. But these are successful people, right? These are people
Right.
that have done some stuff in their career and gotten to a place where
Yeah.
they're successful.
Well, it's actually really funny when we did the podcast about the Great Resignation and we talked about what's going to come of this. And, there was another podcast that we did also that said, interesting to see where this goes because of the people who are leaving and quitting. And does this have to do with people wanting to work from home, starting their own business? So it's almost like this is a follow up in a sense. For women that are leaving in these leadership roles, maybe because of things that they have been thinking about over the pandemic and after.
Yeah, well, it says in the article, just to kind of piggyback off your point, is that it says right here, it says companies are also at a massive risk for losing young women for the same reason, driving female leadership to quit.
Hmm.
So the Great Resignation has led to, well, they're like, well, if they're quitting, right, if they're going to go do something better with their lives or improve their lives, why am I going to stick around and endure this? And we talked about it, right?
Oh, the
When
employee.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
so the employee, because of the employees leaving,
Yep.
right? The Great Resignation has
So-
led to more stress on these managers and on these
oh,
higher
yeah.
level people. And so they're like, well, hey, like I shouldn't have to put up with this, right? I shouldn't have to do more work and get paid less, right? We all know women already get paid less for the roles that
Yes.
they're
Still,
currently in
I know.
anyways.
It's
So
ridiculous.
that's a whole nother can of worms that we can get into. But I found that really interesting. Is like you said, the Great Resignation is leading to the Great
Right.
Breakup.
And we talked about what could happen. I mean, there are, it's really interesting because, there are a lot of people in certain roles, especially women in leadership that are underappreciated and or, underpaid or valued. But I do think that um that it's opening up it has opened up people's minds. That's what we talked about where, do you want better time? Do you want family time? Do you want a healthier environment, less toxicity, more freedom, working from home, all of those things? It's starting to go through everyone's, minds. And I mean, we kind of more focused on, I guess, just the average worker, but it's interesting to see that it's going up to management levels and it makes sense, especially for women in these roles. And it's kind of funny because I was just actually having a conversation about a CEO here in our area or president of one of the Penn State facilities, and a couple of friends work there, and they were saying that because she left, and one of them asked why did she leave, and they said that she wanted to continue to move up and there was no opportunities. Now, was that because there was a man in that or there was nothing available? I don't know. But she left and she actually took a job out of state because she said I can't move up here. And that's actually something really important is, women have we have, I think, wanted to continue to climb the, management ladder and it has been a struggle with that for a long time. But it's interesting that, maybe there are some things coming out of the pandemic too that people are realizing, especially women, like I want more out of this job in my career and they want to move up and it's just not possible in certain situations where they leave just to find something that is possible somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that they do deserve more, 100%, right? For me, it's always been who's the hardest worker gets the reward, right? Like who puts in, who's more successful, right? It shouldn't really come down to anything else. Like who's doing the best job, right? Like that's the person that should get the reward. But something interesting here, we're kind of talking about it in the article. It says, yet as more women return to the workforce, so we were talking about in the Great Resignation, people wanting to work more remotely and stuff like that, and a lot of companies now are forcing people to come back to the office, right? And a lot of people, for certain jobs we talked about, you have to go back to the office, right?
Mhm.
Like that makes sense. But there's a lot of jobs like the marketing stuff and whatnot and sales and whatnot. You probably don't need to necessarily be in the office per se. But it talks about the CEO of this organization that did this article. She says, basically women's patience is wearing thin,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Because like they got a taste of what that freedom looks like, and they're like I deserve this. I worked hard. I should have, especially if you're a CEO or any woman, but in the management, like you should have a little bit more. I would say like benefits, right, than the average employee, right? Because you are a high level manager. And it said, yeah, so because they're sick and tired of business as usual, right? Like, hey, those types of things. So I thought that was really interesting. Because so many companies, this is the other part of this, and it was kind of hinting at what you said. So many companies, in order to get people to come back to the office, promise so many things like employee mental health, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. All those things, when we got back to the real, I guess the normal business world, kind of fell by the wayside, right? All those promises kind of went away.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think it makes a lot of sense because even though, you and I are on our own, we've worked for different companies and we've been involved with other things and especially me recently, but um I think it's absolutely a combination of mental health and the things that have happened during the stress levels during the pandemic. I think it's shown a great deal of coping with stress and leadership and management and how people treat their employees. And there is just, we talked about possibly doing a podcast about staffing and how things have just changed with employment, but one of the things you touched on, and you know um I think that I've been in experiences, and I was, in my early 20s with a guy in, same age. And then I've recently, in my late 30s, have been with, in work situations and or, events that a man said the same exact thing about a role, like and something that a woman was doing in an event and kind of let's just call it a business or something. And they both said, oh, that just runs itself, literally both out of their mouth in 15 years different span, even 10 years. And they're both different ages. But the woman that I talked to, and even back then, we died laughing, and we're like, no, 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 it takes full-time, you know all this time, all this planning, all this effort, all this execution, and for a man to say, you know oh, it just runs itself. Why are you so busy, or what is this? And they're not in the thick of it, so they don't understand. But I think that there's a difference between, and again, it's not all men, but I do think that there's a difference between certain ways of organization and leadership and planning that men and women have just in their, how they run things. But but I think that those differences are showing through more, if that makes sense. Just because of communication, lack of communication, empathy, lack of empathy, connection, and these things that just aren't. It's just almost baffling sometimes when you have conversations with people, and again, it can be men and women and men and men, but when you haven't gone through something, people just have no idea what goes involved. And I think that that's where that burnout, or you said that getting to that edge, you're like,
Your
you know,
patience wearing thin,
yeah.
right? And if you guys are just joining us, we're talking about the Great Breakup, right? When high level management CEO types of women are quitting their jobs, quitting their careers, and moving on to something else, or at least finding a different company pretty in massive numbers. But something that you brought up, you talked about stress, right? Everybody deals with stress. However, this article did research by Gallup. I don't know who that is, but it's a research company that does research apparently. But working women in the U.S. are among the most stressed employees globally, not just in the United States, globally, right? According to the research from Gallup. And as it continues to undertake more responsibilities at home and at work, especially with kids, you add kids to the mix, you add, family members, family stresses, and stuff like that. And it says, at home and at work, they're experiencing burnout and than exhaustion at higher rates than men. And I totally, utterly agree with
Yeah,
that
I mean,
statement.
I think it just goes back, like we said, about different stress and coping mechanisms. As females and being, you know, having personal things as being a mother, or caregivers, or certain things that women roles that women take on. But I think it's also just valued. I mean, to be honest, men and women lead differently. And a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with emotion, because a lot of women that are in leadership roles remove emotion out of things. And the situations that we can be in as women and um, become passionate or show emotion, we're the crazy woman, the crazy bitch, or oh,
Yep.
she's crazy, she's emotional woman. So it's like it's this kind of bad predicament, if you want to say, because there's certain ways that I think go in line with understanding and communication and empathy, and different things that are traits. But at the same time, it almost hurts us sometimes to get so vested and then emotional. And then the men, they're it happened to me recently. I mean, literally, I was told, I was recommended to keep my mouth shut, or not say things and not do things, because of the being known as the emotional woman. Because I was speaking out about men, that were in a leadership position. And it's interesting because what do you think about that, with
That's a good point.
not necessarily having to not like change who you are, but like that is a certain things of character traits of men and women.
I think I totally agree with you. Like, yes, as soon as like a woman is, outspoken or upset, or it's automatic default, she's emotional, she's irrational, she can't think clearly, and that's far from the
She's
case.
on her period.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
all these old generational excuses, right? That's the way we've always done it, right? That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves to ever
Oh
hear
yeah.
someone say that. I think it comes down to this. I can speak from like a millennial standpoint that I feel like there are, I feel like millennial men, for the most part, probably don't think all that. I think like that really stems from the generation before us,
Right.
right? Where it
I
was just
agree.
like where we had those really defined gender roles.
Right.
I mean, we still have that today. Like that hasn't left our society, and it will be a long time before it leaves. Unfortunately, because if you try to change people's thoughts and stuff like that, it can be hard. But, anyways, I think also, especially like in your situation, why you were attacked in that way is that guys, like you were saying, like we're more like ego driven, right?
Mhm.
And so we feel like our ego is being
Or
attacked, right?
threatened.
And
Yeah.
then or threatened.
Yeah.
We and I'm not saying it's right, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's normal human, like that's just a normal reaction for people, and especially for somebody that's maybe not confident in what they're doing, right? Or maybe hasn't done enough, right?
Right. And they're
In the
defensive,
they're like,
projecting.
I've been in this position 15 years. I got a 15-year track record. Yeah, but what have you done for us lately? Like that's
Right.
what really matters. It doesn't matter that you closed the biggest deal in this company's history 20 years ago. Like, what are you doing
Right.
right now, bro? Like,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so
Yeah, I just want to interject because I agree with you 100%. It has to, and again, it could be, I haven't experienced as much with, young, our age, millennial, males, but as far as the, older Gen Xers and, absolutely the boomers, I feel there is a stigma and there is a, um, you know, gender, I don't know what you want to call gender stereotype that, women are supposed to be submissive and not speak up, and men are in charge, and I've experienced it. So I mean, I feel that, maybe that could be, something that has happened with the pandemic and coming out of this, that women had to also, I mean, men and women, I think, there's different roles in families and parenting, and, with different duties, but the
well,
work life
those
balance that we talked about. So,
well,
there's people that came out of it with developing a good, figuring out coping mechanism at work life balance. And then they, are still in positions of being able to competently lead and do all the other things outside of the workplace. But some people can't, they're taking it into work or taking it home.
Yeah, you were just talking, and I just thought about this because like I look at the situation differently now. But like especially a lot of my friends, I'm married, but a lot of my friends who have kids too, like I've really seen it in this light, especially in our generation, the millennial generation, that those roles within the family are more blurred than they used to be, right? They're not as defined. Like, yes, you're the dad, yes, you're the mom, but there's not specific I mean, unless it's something only a woman can do, like breastfeed and stuff like that.
Right,
But other
right.
than that, like those roles have gotten blurred, and I love that, right? I love the fact, and it's because like it has to be that way now. Like there's no choice but to work as a team. Whereas back in the day, maybe that necessarily wasn't the mindset. It was, hey, you do your thing, I do my thing. Like that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know?
I think us millennials are having to go through major life experiences and develop, and I
Well,
call them coping mechanisms. But a lot of the things that we've gone through, and I can't really speak to that. Actually, we should, look back at history as far as things that have happened with, with the boomers and other generations. But we lately, I feel like we're getting the opportunity to grow for the growth, for development, self development, and I think that wasn't as much of an opportunity and or isn't for people who aren't forced to be in that situation with young children, or
yeah,
like you said, I mean, there's stay-at-home dad, a lot of the men that, maybe either were laid off, stayed home because it was so much cheaper for daycare than, going back to work because the wife had a great job, or the mom, so, um I've seen that in a couple friends where, the dad's now staying home
yeah.
working,
Mm,
and
and it,
it then ends up putting, and I don't want to use the word pressure, but it ends up then, for the woman to be, if they're in a leadership role or not, to maybe have the opportunity to want more and do more, and, work their way up in a sense that, you know,
yeah, no, it makes sense. I think getting back to the original topic of why women in higher positions within companies are quitting. And the article brought up something that I found kind of interesting, that the one of the main reasons people or women in general, are leaving in droves, especially to go to different companies, is like you were hinting at, the struggle to climb the corporate ladder, right?
Mhm.
And it says more than 58% of the women that were polled under 30. So this is a different generation. That's not even, well, I mean, some of the under 30 people are millennials, but for the vast majority of them are, what is it, Gen Xers? No, Gen
Yeah,
Zers,
Gen Z.
Gen Zers. Uh, Said that their number one reason they're leaving their job as a manager is, say, career advancement is more than important over the last 2 years. And it's because, in my mind, right, like my opinion is that I think the pandemic woke everybody up in the sense of like, hey, life is short, right? We talked about that,
Mhm.
right? And they're not willing to wait, right? It's always been that, hey, if you're patient, like, if you're patient and you bide your time, you wait around 10 years, right? Maybe you'll get a shot at the title, right? But people, especially in the younger generations, aren't willing to wait anymore, right? They're not
Mhm.
willing to put their loyalty in if the company is not going to be loyal to that.
Mhm.
So I found that very interesting.
Right. Right, and, you know, I'm wondering because I'm not in corporate world, but I know a lot of people who are, and like I shared that story, and I've been in other situations of employment or in leadership roles that I can speak to, but I'm I'm curious as to what really goes on behind when there are women who are applying for these leadership roles and there's a man or men. um is it really about qualification when you know who's judging that, and then is it really about who would be a better leader? Sometimes is it ego driven? Is it you know this whole, like, not sexist, but you know what I mean, like, do about having a woman um in
I
that
think
leadership? I would be really curious to read up and understand what that looks like.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I did spend a good amount of time in the corporate world, and I knew phenomenal leaders that were women, like just the best, right? And I had, a girl work for me when I was a banquet manager. Her name, funny enough, was Megan,
Oh,
and
nice.
she was just a killer. Like she was,
Mhm.
phenomenal at what she did. And for me, like it was always about like who performs the best, right? It didn't matter if you're
Right.
man, woman, whatever, right? Like who is the best performer? Who could I trust, right? And I could trust her 100%, and I would allow her to make decisions and like basically run the ship when I wasn't there, because she deserved it, right? And I think at first I did have problems with some of the guy servers, right? They were like, oh, when I wasn't there, they wouldn't listen to her, right? And so basically, like I had to come in and say, like, you, like she's an extension of me. Like if I'm
Right.
not here, like you listen to her type of deal. But like, I think that's a big thing. I think some men just don't want to take orders from a woman. Like,
Right,
I mean,
and
it just
that's exactly what I'm saying, like, I wonder really what the reasoning is sometimes when, the person is in charge and or hiring, because that would be really interesting for, I guess it would be HR or people that are already in the leadership. But to be honest, like, I could tell you with some nonprofit organizations and some clubs and some things around here that are males with leadership. And when a woman either got in and wasn't really given the chance to prove, almost like not set up for failure. But it's curious because when I was reading the article that you sent, and another one, it said about that a lot of people, still cite, gender discrimination and resistance to change, which is a big thing. And then the old boys club, I've been talking about that a lot lately because of my experience, because of, it's
the way we've
absolutely
always done it.
it is absolutely, it happens, and I've been involved in it in several situations where it is a reason why there's scarcity at women at the top, and it's either because I think that they're afraid to go in certain situations, as women, um, and or to fail and or be embarrassed and or treated like crap, or you know don't have the opportunity to shine, get in and don't have enough time, whether they get burnt out and leave, whether they, are forced out, or whether they're just treated a certain way. Like sometimes it happens. And it's sad because you almost don't get that, opportunity to prove that you are competent and intelligent and, good leader, um and where that's where these women who are in those roles, they get that behind under their belt. Like, you know what I mean? You have to have the experience. Like you have to get in, you have to show that you can perform, you have to have enough time. But I think a lot of times it doesn't even get to that place,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's, I mean, there was a, organization that you know, the nobody wanted to run for the president of the organization. So a woman ran, and just, that's where I learned the old boys club, and then there's a networking group over on the West Shore, and it's, 3 women and 25 guys. And again, old boys club. And it's interesting because it exists. I think, I think that I've learned to stay far away from that, because it's sad. And that's the thing, is we're being made felt that we to not even try sometimes because of how we're treated when we do.
Yeah. And another thing too, like you mentioned, like some of the obstacles that that I mean, just normal leadership, like just, taking the sex out of it, like just anybody in a leadership role, but like especially like, and I've seen this and I've called it out, and I got slapped around for it, but um women in leadership, especially like like if you're a newly promoted person too, like people will sabotage you, right? They'll be like, well, she's not a great leader, so that's why I didn't do the work, and it ultimately falls on the lap of the leader, right? Unfortunately, that and so I've seen that too, right? And that will burn somebody out, right? If you have a massive project and said person is not going to pull their weight because they don't like you as a leader, like unfortunately that comes back onto that person. So
Right.
it does suck, but
Yeah, and I mean, I think, the consensus, like, I mean, for the most part, me, and I think the experiences that I've been in where I've known women that have gone through things like this, where they're leaving, is like they want to work. We want to work, like we want to make a difference, we want to be a part of something, we want to have purpose, we want to give everything to it. I think it's just the environment that it is. And as far as like the experience there, the culture there, and unfortunately, those things aren't going to change. So they're losing great leaders because they're not willing to listen almost, and um, and advance in certain opportunities. Sometimes some of the companies, and they're going. So it's a combination of that, and then that burnout. I feel like, in
yeah.
general, but
Yeah. So let's end it here in the sense of like, we've definitely talked about the issue, but like what in your mind is like, there's a lot of things we can do to fix this, right? Or at least try to fix this. But like in your mind, what is the number one thing that we can do as people to make this better?
I think I would say is looking at the best practices for the business. So taking aside personal interest or agendas, egos, taking aside everything that, it's almost being selfish in a sense, because people are putting their own wants and needs before the company. So, and the other employees. So if we can, put the overall interest and best practices of the company first than our own, I think that that would alleviate a lot of things because people can then admit, oh, this person is better at this than me. You know, this person does a better job. And it's become, I do think it's a lot with the ego. And you know, and then just being, having that honesty with ourselves, what is best for the company.
Yeah, I
What do you
totally
think?
agree. I think culture. I think
Hmm.
culture is a big part of things. And getting that old culture out
It's
of,
hard.
it's hard, but having a real leader come in and get rid of that culture of toxic, just negative thinking, and it's got to start from the top down, right? So if
Does.
even if you aren't, even if the CEO of that company isn't a woman, let's say it's a man, and I believe it really has to be like the more men need to step up and say that this is not right,
Yes.
right? Like we need to
Yeah.
change this, right? Like it can't just be the woman saying that, because
Right.
it's going to fall on deaf ears because the men that don't care aren't. But it's going to take somebody in a real leadership with real power, with real influence in that company to kind of step up and say, hey, no
Right.
more of this, guys. Like
Right, or it'll never happen.
or it won't happen. And that's I think that's a lot of issues can be solved that way. If the people that were if the people that were doing the wrong, if one of them stepped up and said, this isn't right anymore, we can't do this, it would change a lot of things that we wouldn't have to deal with anymore. But in this
Amen.
instance,
Amen, Billy.
you know so but I thought today was an amazing talk, and a great podcast, and um we just need to talk more about this, right? and,
Right.
and bring on some people that can add to the conversation as well.
Absolutely.
But anyways, it is the end of the show, and so what do we do at the end of the show, everybody? We pop up the millennial meme.
Millennial meme.
So it is Mel's meme, right? And so I didn't know if I could necessarily could come up with a meme for this topic. So I was like, Mel, even if it was my turn, I would, this is a topic that you should come up with the meme for. So Mel, take it away.
So I have to say that I didn't have one prepared. So when we were in the intro, while everyone was waiting, I found one and I couldn't stop laughing. And I almost interrupted the show to tell you how funny this is, but I didn't want to say it. So, okay, we're gonna post this, and I have tears in my eyes because I just can't. I just think it's hilarious.
Oh my
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to say it. All right, there's 3 different comic strips and it says, "Boss, okay, so should we hire the man?" Employee says, "What about the lady? She seems more qualified." The third strip, "Boss, you idiot, women belong home in the kitchen." And he pushed the employee out of the
my
window.
god. Oh my
I
god.
mean, it's controversial, but it goes
It's
along with this topic.
I mean, listen, not all our memes have to be like light and airy funny, right? Some of these hit home, and it's amazing. I mean,
I
I would probably be the guy getting pushed out out of the window.
I mean, I think that there's people that still that do absolutely feel that way. But
Of 100%, 100%. So,
I thought it was a
um,
good one. Might as well get risque here. You know, we're you
listen,
know.
we can't wait anymore. But there's also another aspect of the show. If this is your first time watching, first time listening, right? We just did the meme of the week, and so obviously we want to go into this weekend, right, with some good positive thoughts, especially after having this talk, right? We want to put some positivity in it. And so Mel gets another crack at it. So with Mel's moment.
You're getting really good at that. Mel, you're better than me.
Where Mel gets to share some piece of advice, take us into the weekend, so that we have the best possible weekend we can. So, Mel, go ahead.
Really, I cannot believe how coincidental you came up with this topic. I'm having I'm speaking as with an entrepreneur panel at the Girls Grace Conference at Milton Hershey School tonight. It's a girls' conference that um, that Sharice Johnson, who is a graduate of Leadership Harrisburg, started, and I'm speaking to all of these young girls, and now I'm all fired up from millennialing today, and yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. It's just, we need to, we do need to talk about these things because it's still happening. We're going through different things that our parents' generation and the women did, back then and even their age now. And I think that we need to, support and educate the younger women and the younger generations, and open this communication for making sure that these young girls feel welcome to succeed in management and leadership positions and even as entrepreneurs. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to talk to other women about their roles and their how they are looking to advance, and encourage them.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, and I love the fact it's just perfect timing. The universe, right? God, everybody
It
came in and said this was the perfect topic for today because Mel's gonna go like light it up on stage. She's gonna go inspire
Hell yeah.
a bunch of future women in leadership. I'm so excited for that. So that's awesome. I can't wait to get a report from Mel to see what that was all about because I'm sure it's going to be an amazing topic. So, but
Wrong.
anyways, guys, it's Friday. Like I said, you're here. We appreciate everybody that jumped on, commented, that's sharing this, liking this. Please make sure you do that. It helps us out. It helps us reach more people, and that's really the name of the game when we why we do this. And so, but enjoy your weekend. Make sure you check us out every Friday. At 2 o'clock, we're
Yeah.
live, so you can always comment. Just join the fun, right? So,
Yes.
but anyways, guys, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. See you next Friday.